I want to tell you guys about an SEC team going into this year that is going under the radar. And that team is South Carolina. Last year, they had a letdown season. They only won 5 games. They had a boatload of injuries on the offensive line. But going into 2024, though, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Gamecocks, okay? You're going to have improved offensive line that's going to have a good amount of experience. Hopefully, you don't have to deal with the amount of injuries that you did at this position early last year. And if everybody stays healthy, if you can get really good quarterback play out of Lenore Sellers, who's going to be replacing Spencer Rattler, this could be a really sneaky team. Now, they're not going to be sneaky in terms of them being a playoff team or anything like that, but they definitely can get the 7, potentially 8 wins. Lenore Sellers has a good amount of talent around him. You got Nick Harbor, who is an insane athlete. This is one of the most freakishly gifted guys in all of college football in terms of athleticism. He's like 6'4", 240 pounds, and they say he's faster than Tyreek Hill. This dude could have damn near qualified to be sprinting in the 100, 200 meter in the Olympics right now. Not only do you have Nick Harbor at wide receiver, but you got Rocket Sanders, who has been one of college football's most productive running backs over the last couple of years via the transfer portal. So you got a really nice 3 core of guys who should be able to massively improve Carolina's offense. And Carolina always has a wide receiver or two, like when they had Juice Wells before he ended up quitting on them and transferring to Ole Miss. You also had Xavier Legette. They've always been known to have at least a wide receiver or two that ends up popping off. And if you can get the offensive line right and Lenore Sellers ends up playing up to his capability, this is definitely an offense that is good enough to be in the top half of the country. Defensively, you have one of the more experienced defensive lines returning in the SEC this year. You got about at least 2 or 3 guys on your defensive line who are going to be playing in the NFL. You got TJ Sanders who returns. He had 4.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss last year. Middle linebacker Debo Williams was a first-team All-SEC selection. And you got a lot of talented guys to fill out that front 7 through the transfer portal. They got a guy from Georgia Tech who had 6 sacks last year, 11.5 tackles for loss. You also had a really good linebacker pickup from Charlotte. There is a lot of talent on the front 7 of Carolina's defense. And they also have a really decent secondary as well. This is a team that they aren't as talented as what some of the best teams in the SEC are, like Alabama, Georgia, and whatnot. But they're one of the more decent middle-of-the-pack SEC teams where they don't have too many weaknesses, but they aren't really as talented enough as what some of the cream of the crop teams are going to be. But with how good of a coach Shane Beamer is, we know that he has the ability to have his team ready to play in big games. They can pull off an upset at any given Saturday. I mean, we saw what they did a few years ago to end 2022 when they upset Tennessee, and then the following week they upset Clemson, and they just completely went on a tear their last final weeks of that season. But Shane Beamer is one of those coaches where he's really good at being able to find ways to pull off upsets because of his ways of winning football games, which isn't overly relying on having a lot of talent. It's all about being disciplined, being well coached, and being able to do the little things right. Like, win the field position battle in special teams. South Carolina is always really good when it comes to the special teams department. And when you have somebody like Lenore Sellers, who kind of has that Anthony Richardson profile where he's like 230, 240 plus pounds, runs 4'4", freakish athleticism with a rocket ship for an arm, you are going to be able to be way more creative offensively than what you were with the guys that you've had in the past, because they haven't had the kind of talent that Lenora Sellers has had. You know, Lenora Sellers brings a different dynamic to the Gamecocks offense this year. And I really believe that he is going to give them really good quarterback play. And what has hindered South Carolina these last couple of years has been either they get the quarterback right with Spencer Rattler, but your offensive line allows him to get hit or run for his life every single play. It seems like now South Carolina not only has their quarterback situation taken care of, but they also have finally found the answer to their biggest Achilles heel on offense, which has been their lack of good play on the offensive line, which you should finally get some serviceable offensive line play this year. I know their schedule is not easy, but they do have around 3-4 easy wins against Old Dominion, Akron, Vandy, Wofford. You take care of those games, you got 4 wins. So now you just need to figure out where the other 3 wins are going to come from to get you to 7 wins. You definitely could end up upsetting LSU, Ole Miss, or Texas A&M at home, because it's really hard to win at South Carolina. And they got some tough road games against Bama and Oklahoma and Clemson, but with what they've been able to do in the past under Shane Beamer, I wouldn't put it past them to be able to upset a Oklahoma or a Clemson this year. And they definitely can beat Kentucky. So South Carolina is a team I believe is heavily under the radar. They're incredibly underlooked, but they have some really talented pieces coming into this season on that squad. And I believe they're going to be a 7-5 team this year.